And welcome to another episode of the Geek Centurions. Me, your boy Eli.
It's me, Joe.
And we're talking about Ant-Man Quantamania, the first movie of Phase 5 of Marvel. A movie that we've been kind of itching, I would say. No?
It's been, well, yeah, because we know that this movie would be the first to officially introduce the big bad for this sort of new saga from Marvel, the multiverse saga, which is Kang the Conqueror.
Mm-hmm. And, well, not to say that we haven't met a Kang, but we did meet a variant of Kang.
Yeah, it's pretty much the one that we know, like, is going to be sort of the headliner. Because like, ever since Loki, we've known that, like, Kang is going to be involved in some form or fashion because we've seen a variant of him, you know? The one that, was controlling the TVA, yeah, he was a variant of Kang, and now we have sort of the big Kang here.
So, yes, by the way, I was trying to remember his name. It was He Who Remains. I knew it was something like weird.
It was like some sort of weird, like, he
not a name,
all,
but a title. Yeah.
Know?
Yes, but so essentially, what we're gonna do right now, just we're gonna give each of our thoughts on the film, further explain them as we go along, and then we give our rating at the end. So the way we usually do is we do just like a 1 minute review from each one of us. And Joe, you're gonna be the first one to start it off. So whenever you're ready, buddy.
Okay. So, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is a very solid movie. You get a lot of, Paul Rudd's, on his game. Michael Douglas is always a fun character. Honestly, kind of forget Michelle Pfeiffer's Janet Van Dyne, but yeah, it's a solid movie. You sort of get like this neat little plot that has them, being trapped in the quantum realm, having to escape. Various drama because Janet knows of the danger, Kang, and he's pretty much sort of a very interesting villain. We get to see some other stuff going on as well. The visuals were alright. I believe overall, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is a solid movie with some fun dialogue, and it's honestly what you expect from an Ant-Man movie at this point. So, lots of quips, some fun action,
Yes. I like the way you said that. All right, so I guess that leads it to me. So, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is a movie that it's very much a Marvel movie. That's not a jab or a negative. I think it's very much what you expect an Ant-Man Marvel movie to be. It does follow a lot of the things that you kind of associate with Ant-Man. The idea of the quantum realm itself is a great idea. I love the designs. I love the look of the quantum realm. That's something I was really happy to see. Though some of the CGI on it did not look so good, and some of the actors felt a little stiff. Jonathan Majors clearly steals the show as Kang, and obviously the introduction of a certain Marvel villain is also a great thing to see. And yeah, the setups are being made. I think that's the thing I could easily say that's great about this movie. This is a good setup for Kang and his future endeavors in the MCU. All right, so where do we want to start off? Do we want to start off with the negatives that we have for this movie?
Yeah, I guess we can talk about. I guess because like I said, it's a solid movie, not a perfect, not a great movie.
Yeah,
just solid all around. Like, again, that's not a bad thing. But I can kind of understand where some people are kind of iffy on it. Granted, the Ant-Man movies have always been kind of
hit or miss.
People like the first one because it was just kind of like a little fun, sort of movie. A little not prison, but heist movie mixed with Marvel stuff. But in the second one I remember it was all right. Had an alright sort of villain too, but it just kind of all over the place from what I remember.
It felt like we were meandering.
Yeah, it just felt like it was kind of like one of those filler movies. And I think most people remember the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie mainly for the post-credit scene
Mm-hmm.
more than anything, because it's like, hey, Ant-Man's he's gonna go try to get some quantum energy from the quantum realm or something like that or whatever, and then he gets stuck because guess what? Uh, Hope, Hank, and Janet all get dusted. So it's one of those like big shocking. Oh my god! It's like, oh, we were gonna have like a little fun little movie that wasn't gonna do much with the current MCU at the time, and then it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna end it back where we where the rest of the universe has been at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, but no, in this one, yeah, it has. I would say, I think it's a better. I think it's better paced and more focused in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like, oh hey, Cassie built a thing that trying to like see into the quantum realm without them going into it, but it's caught the attention of a certain person, a certain villain in the quantum realm, and now he's pretty much like, I want revenge on Janet, because X amount of things happened while she was in there. So yeah, there's that, and I think it's sort of overall like a, all right, they get stuck into a strange place and they have to pretty much escape because Kang's there and he's pretty much
Right. Right.
a ticking time bomb, right?
Yeah. No, it's just funny you say taking time bomb. Kang is himself is a time user.
Yeah, a
It
person who uses time travel very well.
Yeah, and they kind of gives off a bit of a Doctor Manhattan vibes in the way he speaks, but he's not like Doctor Manhattan because Kang himself is a very like very weird, very almost inconsistent character in reality because Kang the Conqueror has had many names, and in the way they introduce him in the movie is like it's just different variants, which makes sense, right? That makes it a lot more easier to understand. But he's always been kind of a questionable, like kind of a goofy, not that much of a serious threat of of a villain for the Avengers. I mean, there are very obviously there's different interpretations to go with. I think Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and maybe this one's probably one of the better interpretations of Kang in media. But to see him in this film, for this movie, with so much focus, like you were saying, because like I think it was Ghost that was in the last one.
Yeah, it was Ghost, and she was. I mean, she was more of like not a villain per se, but more so of like,
A victim of circumstance.
yeah. But no, I will say that because
Yeah.
sorry, the interesting thing about the story
Mm.
is that that is at least much more paced out well. But in terms of like I guess the negatives about it, I think for me personally, it's more so on certain plot elements
Mm-hmm.
within the story. Mainly sort of like I guess uh, Scott's whole thing, where not that I have an issue with him like sort of being like like I'm just sort of hanging out now, just writing books about my life and stuff. It's more sort of like they give him like this weird sort of arc where since they're stuck in the quantum realm, Casey has been or Cassie, no, it's Cassie, right?
Cassie. I was gonna say, wait, who you talking about?
Now Cassie is very like you get to learn a bit about her character. Just she's very much like her dad, a bit of a rebel, getting into trouble. Actually been put in jail for a little bit, but she's mainly just doing it just for like I want to help people, that sort of thing.
Like,
And
Dad, you help people. I would just want to do the same thing.
yeah, and then sort of they learn of like the plight of the various quantum realm people having been conquered by King the Conqueror. And he's like, "Hey, listen, all right. First and foremost, I got to get you home. You know,
That's the most important thing to do. Yeah, do.
we got to get ourselves back home. This isn't really sort of our fight kind of thing." And that's sort of like the kind of character he kind of is given for a little bit of like, "Hey, listen, this isn't our thing. This isn't our this isn't our problem. Sorry about what's happening, but we got to like get out of here, right?" And Cassie's very like what the hell, man? I think it's just kind of there just to like introduce a bit of like conflict between, obviously, the two, because she's very much like, you're my hero, you're always going out helping people, but it's like,
You saved the world, man.
yeah, and it's like,
and
it's got,
and it's such a it's a really good idea, but it's not explored as much as we both would like. Because we had this conversation about it on the way here, that it just didn't feel all fleshed out as much.
mhm.
Um, for me, the thing that really held it back with that storyline was the actress playing Cassie herself. Not to say she's like a terrible actress. No, she's fine. Is that there's a lot of times where I feel like she's kind of have that lost look in her eyes, like she doesn't know what she's doing, and it kind of like holds her back from a lot of moments where I feel like she needs to like emote a little more. She's very stiff, is what I want to say, in her
Mhm.
acting.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I feel like a chunk of the reasoning for that might just be because, I mean, obviously, when you watch the movie, like, you can tell that a majority of it's filmed on, like, in green, essentially on a big green stage, right? For
Mm-hmm.
all this, there's barely any practical sets they use. Maybe like a couple I can think of from the scenes I remember. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's probably hard for a lot of actors. I mean, I remember there was a story with Ian McKellen
Mm-hmm.
uh, during the filming of the Hobbit movies, where he sort of just like very like tired out by just having to stand in front of green screens and just imagine like
Mm-hmm.
what the hell's going on. So I can imagine like for her, it's somewhat of a similar like, okay, I just gotta pretend something's going on here.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's why she has that sort of weird look in her eyes. I
Mm-hmm.
guess as you described it, as well as just like maybe a harder time like trying to get into whatever scene she needs to get into because she's having to imagine some stuff and probably like I don't know. Like I didn't exact. I mean, I don't know. I thought she was all right, but I definitely understand why you would feel that she's very stiff in terms of like her
Mm-hmm.
acting of like oh, like
Yeah.
like she's oh
Yeah, and
goes about
I'm sure she's done a lot more uh emotional role. I do think that's what it is. I think it's just that like she herself is not used to the that kind of thing. Working within like a majority of green screen. Like, yeah, I heard of the Ian McKellen thing too, and like yeah, I think somebody was like, I didn't even get it. This is not what a guy's acting for.
yeah
Yeah, but I mean, I say the good thing though is that it's supposed to parallel the story between those two and like Janet, Hope, and Hank. Because, like, obviously, Janet has been living in the quantum realm for however many years.
30 years I think she said.
Yeah, 30 years. And, like, she doesn't want to talk about anything of that.
Yeah, and it's sort of a point of contention between the characters of like why aren't you telling us things? Why didn't you? It's like why every time we always ask about it, you always very it's like this is the reason why
Yeah, I was like, we just happen to move on to another topic out of nowhere. So I think it's that's kind of the whole point of that the through line for that is just this you know
like like family dynamics are being tested. I'm guessing
hmm
is sort of like the big uh, thing throughout the
hmm
movie of like, hey, they're we treat each other as a family at this point. Heck, Cassie's calling a hand grandpa, even though she's not her actual grandpa.
no, and I love that.
Yeah, it is kind of a funny thing too, because he's very much like, oh yeah, I like, I've been like showing her some stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like one of those neat little things about it.
hmm
Of like, yeah, all right, so it's very clear to like, okay, this is like, we have an ant family, if you will,
Yeah.
like the Bat family, except it's with ants.
Yeah.
um, I will say, I think one of my other, to at least round up, I guess my sort of issues with the film. I
Mm.
think sort of like the last issue I probably had was
Mm.
so there is like from the trailers you get this sort of feeling of like that potentially there's going to be a plot line
Mm.
involving Kang and Scott where it's like I am a master of time, Scott. I can give you back what you want. And we do get a little bit of like Scott being like I'm sorry I missed out on a good chunk of your life Cassie. You know, they sort of make mention it every now and again. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, it feels like that might be what something's going to be leading to. He's going to be like this sort of like Scott might be tempted by the devil, if you will, to make a contract.
I did think that's what it was, but it's also just I think the way the movie was marketed.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Because the movie clearly wants to market the fuck out of Kang, and we'll talk about Kang in a minute, obviously, and like that's kind of like a very important scene, but like it does like it gives you the implication of it being a very important moment, but it's kind of not.
At least the actual scene where they're talking face to face.
Yeah. Like, but you can also understand, you know, why, you know, Scott would eventually be like, hell no.
I mean, yeah, obviously, I think for most people, I think it would be generally like, yeah, no, Scott's always gonna be like, no, to that deal or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it would have been. I'm just saying, it feels like it's a bit of like a wasted plot line.
Yeah,
You know?
I think that's what it is too. And like for me, I would say another negative that I have, and I think I've said this before. The CGI on it has not looked great. Granted, I think it's because like this is very CGI heavy, as you were saying. But like you know the way that the quantum realm is designed, from the look of the creatures to some of the characters. Well, some of them are like a little kind of goofy in my opinion. Some of them have really great designs, especially the creatures.
Mm-hmm.
I love the creature designs in this one, and that's amazing. But there are times where it is more from the human actors. They don't blend well with the backgrounds. You can tell like okay, this is the green screen line is there kind of stuff, especially in moments where they have to like shrink down and go back up. And I think it's just like super CGI heavy, where it's like it's looking a little obvious. There's a moment specifically with Scott where it's like okay, I can tell you just it feels like you just kind of copy and paste different Scotts here and there, and just the way he kind of looks around it. And granted, it's probably because like that is a lot of work, and it's gonna trying to make it like blend all together look realistic is gonna take a lot longer. So I mean that's an issue I have. It just does not look great, and some parts sometimes, but sometimes it looked fantastic. Like the backgrounds looked amazing. There's a sequence with the Pym family where they're flying on like essentially
Some giant
stingray looking thing.
Yeah.
And it looks great. It looks amazing. So that's kind of like the thing about it. Like the CGI can be good when it's good, but when it's bad, it's very noticeable sometimes. Yeah, I mean that's mostly from my eye. I know you didn't really notice it as much.
Yeah, I think when you told me about the scene in question, I'm like, I didn't actually notice what you were noticing.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, I don't really know if it's just because I wasn't looking for it or if it wasn't that obvious to me. Because I don't know. I feel like when it comes to special effects for me, if it's like, yeah, I can probably notice a bad effect when I see one.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm pretty sure I can also. I'm just like, in my brain, I think I'm more focused on like what's happening in the story and stuff like that. Because I know the effects they use for this one Marvel villain that I think you might have mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks weird, but at the same time, like there was really no good way of like making that design.
Oh yeah, we're talking about MODOK, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, MODOK is obviously. Well, I think it's like pretty obvious he's in the movie. He's been in like a lot of shots, and a lot of people are talking about it. He looks off, but at the same time, I don't know if that's just how MODOK is in general, or just like
yeah, dude's a giant floating head with tiny arms and baby legs. Like, I know the Avengers game tried it pretty damn hard to like make him, at least look all right in like a real world aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I feel like I just like the design of the MODOK in this movie way more.
Well, you know what it is that and a lot of people have been saying that the Avengers game had like a really good design for MODOK, and I'm just like, I don't think so. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't look right in my opinion.
Yeah.
But this one is like, oh no, this is like straight out of the comic kind of thing, kind of look, and
Yeah.
it works.
Like it weirdly enough it works.
And like the actor playing MODOK, I'm like, oh my god, this is perfect. He should have been playing MODOK the whole time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how like they integrate MODOK into the story because obviously like in the comics he's built by AIM and stuff like that. Here he is pretty much I won't get into like exactly his origin, but pretty much Kang is involved with it, and it honestly makes a lot of sense considering how Kang has been
Yeah.
in the future. He has all this tech, and that's sort of his like gimmick, right? Like he's from the future. He has all this like tech that's pretty much like you could argue it might be even magic, if you will, but it's he's just like what from the 25th century or some shit like that.
The far century.
Yeah.
So it's obviously that we're gonna get stuff like that with him. But yeah, but like I said, MODOK looks weird, but then again, I'm like, that's MODOK though.
Yeah, like they could have gone. I mean, because there is like he has like this faceplate mask on him to hide the face.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, yeah, but like, which I feel like might have been what they might have wanted to do, because he is a what is it? What's the acronym? Because MODOK is an acronym.
Yeah, mechanical organism designed only for killing.
Yeah, so they could have just went the route of like, oh, he's just a pure robot with a giant face kind of thing. But no, they have him. He has a straight up face, and to be fair, everyone acknowledges that he looks weird. Everyone's like, "What the hell is this?"
Because how would that's not the only way you would react to MODOK.
It's like, what the hell?
Like there's like there's like numerous like characters in Marvel, even in DC too, that are just weird looking to be weird, right? That's kind of their whole like shtick. And so like him just automatically looking weird and everyone acknowledging he looks weird is just like totally normal in my opinion. Like if I were to take someone who's never seen a Marvel movie, better yet has never read a Marvel comic, I was like, here's MODOK, and they'd be like, what the hell is this? This big giant head with tiny little arms and tiny little legs.
He has these like rockets and like lasers attached to him and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's what I think makes MODOK work in this movie, in my opinion, is that everyone sort of has just a realistic reaction to him of just like, Jesus Christ, what the? Because I mean, like, I think at the end of the day, that's kind of like, I think that's a real magic sauce for Marvel. Honestly, is that the movies acknowledge that yeah, this is some weird shit, but it's here, and we're just gonna have to deal with it.
I kind of wish they do that more, to be honest, with some of their like weirder characters. Because sometimes it's like, okay, this is a little weird, and we're just gonna like kind of modernize it. MODOK was not modernized; he was just straight pulled out of the comic.
Yeah, and I think
all that was missing was the hair.
Yeah, I guess because he normally does have hair, but
yeah.
I guess it's just more aesthetically. Like, he's a giant head, so I'm guessing it just looks kind of neat, more cooler that he's bald.
And you know what? It works.
Yeah,
it totally works. Now that we talked about MODOK, obviously we're gonna go talk about the big bad himself, Kang the Conqueror. And Kang, played by Jonathan Majors, obviously we've talked about this. You probably heard it from all around. Yeah, he steals the show. He is probably one of the best things about the movie, and his acting is really great. His actions are both menacing and like he is a terrifying man. Like, he sets a presence.
Yeah, I really do think if there's one thing Marvel is doing well is setting up Kang and making him like a believable like Endgame level threat, right?
Yeah,
like because I think the one thing you could say about Thanos is that not counting Infinity War, he's kind of just like there in the background.
Yeah,
of a lot of things.
He remember he only showed up in Avengers 1 at the end at the mid credits. and just being like, oh, to face the Avengers, you are to court death, and
He
like
just turns around, and, like smiles, like,
he's like,
oh,
oh,
okay,
oh, that gets me.
yeah. And then you see him a little bit in Guardians, where he's just kind of like there, floating in his chair, all that stuff. And then you get him again in the Avengers 2 mid credits, where he's like, fine, I'll do it myself. It isn't until Infinity War that we actually, get Thanos and his motivations and why he does the things he does, right? Here, like, I think Marvel is sort of like, kind of like not jumping ahead, but more like having Kang just be there.
They're setting it up.
They're doing like pretty like hands-on setup of like, no, this is Kang.
This is what he's about. This is why you should be worried about him. And he is going to be our Endgame level threat, right? Because like with Infinity War, that's our first time ever really meeting Thanos.
Like, we've seen him before, and he's done stuff in the background.
The joke has always been all he does is sit on a chair.
Yeah, it's not until Infinity War then people are like, oh, okay, Thanos is pretty freaking cool.
You get a motive, you get a reasoning, and you get a desire from Thanos. He wants to collect the stones. Why? He wants to, eliminate half of the universe. And why does he want to do that? Because he wants to, it's resources. Now, some people might say, "Oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? This and that." I think the fact that that the only thing in his mind is to kill half of the, universe of living organisms should tell you that reason was never an option.
No, right? Because I think he would even probably just say, then that just leads to more and more and more and more. There's clearly, he's like, it's never gonna stop, expanding. Why don't we just, go straight to the source and just be like, snap all, like half of all living creatures on the universe to conserve those resources.
Yeah, but now with Kang, because Kang we've been introduced in Loki, a variant of Kang, right?
Yeah.
But it sets up the threat of one that would eventually be, the stuff we see in Kang Dynasty / Secret Wars, and all this multiversal stuff that was kind of further later explained in, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and now we get this that really sets up the the big multiversal threat, but also why Kang is such a villain to watch out for. Because by the time we're introduced to Kang proper, I might say, because this is the Kang proper. You can argue that the one who remains is so and so, but like this is Kang proper, and this is what he's about, and you're like, oh, okay, this isn't his Infinity War movie. This is leading up to his Infinity War movie.
Yeah, I mean, heck, it's very clear.
Yeah.
That Kang is just very, very strong and powerful, and just Ant-Man and Wasp, they can't handle him. They are barely able to like do enough to him. They have to pretty much enlist a whole, it takes a whole army, if you will, to take him down. And even then, he's like, nah,
he's still standing.
Yeah, so it's I think it's neat because it's like he's not he's not entirely invincible, because obviously what made Thanos crazy is that not only is he strong, but once he has once he starts collecting all those stones and stuff, it makes him real threatening. And obviously you don't have that sort of like ability to mess with space, time, and reality and all that stuff anymore with a villain. But you do have, like I said, a guy who from the future who straight up has like pretty much projectiles that can just disintegrate anyone. He can redirect blasts, and then he's basically doing magic almost, if you will. But it's tech.
Yeah. He is. It's one of those. Was that joke that they made in Thor? Like, oh, to you guys it's magic, but to us it's science.
Yeah, kind of, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
He's on that level of tech, you know.
Yeah, and like like I said, he's established as a threat. The level of stuff that he's able to do, even so, kind of just makes it go like, oh shit, oh damn,
It
like
definitely makes you wonder, like, all right, so this is it's pretty much we've only gotten a taste of his power. Like,
what?
what happens when we see him like fully like
Mm,
with all like with it with everything he has, right?
yeah, and like this is the thing that really gets me with Kang, right? The movie itself, it's pretty okay-ish, but the setup for him is great. And then you look at all the other stuff, like, oh, this has always been setting up for him since like day one. You can even argue like since Endgame, because Endgame's like, oh yeah, we're introducing time travel, and all people are like, oh, but that's so cheap, I'm like, but wait, if they do it this way with this certain villain, it could work. And god damn it, they knew. I'm not saying they knew since like the beginning of Endgame kind of stuff, but like you can argue like that was like a little seed that will eventually grow into what eventually this big giant tree that is Kang, and the branches of, you know, the timeline that he has to mess with.
I mean, yeah, I feel like that is sort of another like one of the other great strengths of Marvel movies is that you know you don't have to watch all the stuff and not everything is like a setup
Mm-hmm.
because obviously like the Avengers time traveling in Endgame, right? You know that could have easily just been like maybe a one time thing and then be like, oh, we'll never do that again. That's too dangerous and stuff. But like you said, that stuff is always like was always probably maybe a seed so that if they wanted to do, hey, you know what, let's do Kang. How do we do that? Oh, we already just literally established time travel, and that's his big thing that he likes to do. Travel to different timelines and mess around and stuff. So yeah, that's clearly a way we can handle that. You know.
Mm-hmm. And so like seeing it all turn out like I'm very interested to see how Kang is, and you kind of get, like I said, you kind of start seeing like all the eventual like seeds of what they have planned for him later on, because I'm not gonna spoil it too much, but like the mid credit scene sets up a lot more for Kang than anything else, and so we're at the wait and see kind of stuff, and I'm very excited to see his future endeavors in this, and Jonathan Majors looks like he's having fun with this role.
No, I definitely agree. He because if you look into Kang and like the character, you can tell like that's he's gonna have a lot of fun playing all the various variants that Kang that are in the various variants of Kang that are out there.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, oh Jesus, I can't wait to see that. Is there anything else you want to talk about when it comes to this movie
Um,
before we give our rating?
not I don't know. I can't think of much. I think I said my piece. I feel like for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. I will admit it is kind of there is like an interesting plot point of like, hey, there's a juice or like a liquid or something that our main characters have to drink in order to understand all these characters, which I feel like is like it's something that's not usually mentioned a lot of times because I know in Guardians
Mm-hmm.
they mention how there's like this thing that allows everybody to like understand each other. I think Peter mentions he has like some sort of like ear thing or whatever that allows them to like understand and
Mm-hmm.
feedback that stuff. So it is kind of neat. There is like that's a thing too, but for the quantum realm, where it's like, oh, they're all talking this weird language and stuff. You don't know what the hell they're saying, but once Scott drinks the juice, it's like, oh, I understand you now. That's weird.
It's a little like a weird plot device, but
I mean, yeah,
I think it's fine.
I'm pretty sure there's probably gonna be some friggin' internet critic out there that's being like, how can they understand each other? How do they even learn to speak English and stuff? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, most people don't care, but this is probably for like the one thing for like those types of people, you know.
Yeah. Do you want to give your rating on this movie?
Uh, yeah, I think overall, I feel like I would give this Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium. Like, I feel like for the most part, the good stuff that I liked about it kind of outweighs a lot of the problems I have with it. Because, like I said, it's a solid movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's probably around like a 7 for me. You know?
I'm very much on board with that. I feel like this is a very like solid movie. It doesn't do anything really spectacular or anything like groundbreaking, but it doesn't do anything that's offensive or bad. I think it's just very much straightforward. Like I've said this, I think I said this before about the anime movies. They've always been pretty solid. Like they're not terrible, they're not great, but they're just pretty okay. So this kind of just goes into the whole thing with Ant-Man. It's pretty okay.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been better if they had Louise, but that's a different story.
That is true. This is probably the first movie where you don't have those side characters from the first two. But to be fair, how the hell were you gonna fit these guys into that movie?
No,
unless,
no, yeah, no.
Unless they also got sucked in, and at that point, it's like what?
What? No, no, that'd be horrible.
Yeah.
It'd be just them screaming at everything, and I don't want to hear that. I love those three, by the way. I love.
But their strength is obviously never getting that involved in the superhero shenanigans, right?
Yeah. Especially like Louise, because don't get me wrong, I love Louise. He's probably one of my favorite characters they introduced. Especially his little joke of like, all right, man, let me tell you the whole story. Then you hear the,
Yeah.
like he was one of my favorites, yeah. But I also totally understand why he's not in here. But I like the idea that that Ant-Man himself has this sort of new family with him, his daughter, and like the Ant family, which we're just gonna call it nowadays. And how supportive they are of each other. It's great to see that. I really wish they did more of that, but like it worked some areas, it worked and not in others. But overall, I do agree that this movie is more of a 7 out of 10 kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anyways, guys, I think that's a good place to end it. If you like what you heard, be sure to follow us on all social medias: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. At the Geek Centurions, we're most active on Instagram, and we'll have a link tree to the all podcast sites we're officially part of, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and all the like. And you find a link tree you'll find a link to the YouTube where all you audio listeners out there can put a face to the voice, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And be sure to support us on Patreon. It's really just there for any kind of form of support. And yeah, guys, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantamania, it's pretty solid. If you're gonna watch it for Kang. That's all I gotta say. He might not be in there for much. I'm just letting you guys know that right now. But he is a show stealer.
No, he's very. I'm looking forward to Kang and his further adventures, because after all, Kang will return.
Because we're setting his ass up. He's got a movie named after him, Joey.
Yeah.
All right, it's been me, your boy, Eli.
Give me Joe.
Guys, everyone, peace.